everyone, and welcome to another Richard Head Longbows video. Yes, it's time for more Bowyer's blogging, where the series of videos where you get to see what I do in the workshop and get to follow along pretty much in real time with what I'm actually doing. I've been working on these couple of staves, a triple laminate and this yew one up here on the tiller. If you missed the other videos, then I'll stick them up on the cards here where you can watch the other two parts. Apologies if I sound a bit funny. I'm not trying to pick you up with my sexy low voice. I actually have a throat infection, so my apologies for that, and my apologies if you thought I was trying to pick you up, ladies, which of course I can do. Just simply send me your numbers. So yeah, where were we? Well, that Yew Bow that I was working on, well, I'm pretty much happy with the tiller on it now. Let's put the hook on here for you and have a look. When I left you a few days ago when I was making this, there was a bit of a twist which I've managed to now get out, and also I wasn't 100% happy with the tiller. I'll also try filming this with a centralized camera, actually on a tripod, so you can get a bit of better of a look at this rather than me trying to do it with the GoPro, which is never that easy. So hopefully you're looking at some slightly more steadier footage of that bow, and hopefully you can see that it's vastly improved as to what it was the other day. Now, the other thing I need to do, as this is a bow for a customer rather than one that I'm just making for stock, I need to get this to the correct weight. So I'm going to put the scales on here. The person wanted this to be sort of around getting on for 40, sort of 38-40 pounds at the 28-inch mark, which is down here somewhere. There we go, that's 28. So I'm going to draw this to 28 now and see what weight this is. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that on there, but that's reading about 30, just over 37. So now, considering I'm going to have to do things like getting rid of tool marks and any minor final tillering, and also putting the nocks on, which obviously can affect the weight, and as I've mentioned in other videos, I do tend to leave the tips a little bit stiff to allow for putting the nocks on, so we're going to lose possibly some weight. That isn't always the case. Sometimes you put nocks on and just by the very act of putting the nocks on, particularly if they are proving fiddly to get fitted accurately, you can artificially reduce the length of the bow, which can make it go up. But in general, when you start doing things like finishing, getting rid of all the tool marks and what have you, you are going to end up reducing the weight somewhat. So I'm going to pike this bow. It's over long for what we need, so I'm actually going to reduce the length of this bow by 1 inch at each end, so an overall of 2 inches, and hopefully that will mean when I put the nocks onto this one that it won't reduce in weight too much, and we'll be able to keep it up to the weight that was required by the customer. Piking is, well, as I say, it's pretty much just reducing the length of the bow. There isn't anything any more technical to the actual act of piking it. It's what you're then doing once you have, I don't know, what's the word for after you've piked something? Poked! That sounds a bit rude. But anyway, so yeah. The problem with piking a bow, although the act of piking is quite simple, i.e. simply reducing the length of the bow, so I'm just going to mark off 1 inch here, and I'm going to do the same with the bottom limb here. There we go. There we are. So we've marked off 1 inch there where I'm going to do the cutting. Now, cutting it, fine, fairly simple, easy thing to do. People might slightly worry about doing that. Well, I wouldn't worry too much. As long as you've measured it correctly, you've done the same at each end, it shouldn't be an issue. What piking does mean as far as the difficult side of it, the side of that you have to deal with after you've reduced it, is essentially you may have to re-tiller the bow. Depends how well you've tillered it to begin with. So once you reduce that length, you're going to end up with slightly stiffer limbs, which is obviously what we want to keep the weight up, but you may find you suddenly alter the shape of the bow. Now, as long as you're cutting it evenly at each end, it shouldn't affect it too much, but the potential is there. So that's really the dangerous side of piking, or certainly the thing that's going to cause you more work afterwards. Okay, that's that one. It may look a bit brutal if you've never done it before, but as I say, it's fairly simple. There we are, inch off each end. Now I'm going to leave this one now because I've got to cut and drill the nocks for this one, so I won't need to put any new tillering grooves on here because the tillering is done. Any tillering I need to do after piking, as I mentioned, I'm going to do once I've put those nocks on. That's kind of it then, weight wise. Once those nocks are on and any final work I do, if the bow still isn't to the weight that's desired, well, then I'll have to start again for that customer. As you can see here, it's wanted 38 40 pounds at 28, and the RH just means right-handed, which will be where we put the arrow plate. So yeah, so this one I will put to one side now. The other bow that I was working on, and actually just to compare the two here, and just to show you some of the interesting difference between Yew and a triple laminate. This triple laminate has got setback in it, meaning that when the pieces of wood, in fact there's actually 4 pieces of wood in here, though technically it's a triple laminate. The 4th piece up here is to just to bulk out the handle. A lot of that will actually disappear and probably just end up with a tiny small amount in the handle section, but at the moment it does stretch out slightly into the limbs there. I don't know whether you can see that on the GoPro, whether that's picking that light differential up between the 2 pieces of lemon wood there. It's the same wood, but it's from a slightly different plank, so you can slightly see the difference there. The difference between that and the Yew bow here, the Yew bow didn't have a setback in it, though the handle section here, it is actually a spliced bow, so this is 2 pieces that are jointed together. There was a slight amount of setback put into that, but it wasn't put on a former in the same way that we'd put this one onto a former, so I don't know whether you can see on there. So you've still got a lot of setback in the triple laminate there, because we haven't done any work on this one. But what you will probably see once we've done that is actually how good Yew is and why Yew is so favoured. Although I've done an awful lot of work on this bow, it's still retained quite a lot of its straight shape without the need to do any setback on it. And you can actually you can sort of feel how good Yew is by the bracing process, how it feels in the hand and how it actually wants to return back to shape, which is obviously how we get that velocity, how we get the cast and speed out of a bow, is by using materials that want to return to the initial straight position that it was in, to get that arrow to be propelled forward. So that's something when you're certainly working with 2 different woods at once, you start to feel, you can start to tell the difference between them. And the benefits of Yew. And also this one, as I say, is actually packed with bamboo, so it'll probably get a little bit more cast out of it as well anyway. But just an interesting difference there. As I say, you only really notice when you start working with more than one different type of material and experience over years working the different types of bows. Something which hopefully you will see as you move on. So I'm just finishing off the roughing out on the triple laminate here. I'm just going to use the file here and get rid of some of these tool marks I made with the rasp side of this rasp here. So I'm just using the file side now, and I'm going to get rid of some of these marks, mainly on the corners here where I took the edges off. Okay, that's enough work there done with the file. What I'll actually do now is put this into the vise again, and I'll actually use the scraper and get rid of any remaining marks that are on the back here. Okay, that's the marks off the back. That's all sorted out now. Okay. Right, let's get the grooves into this one. I'm probably going to manage without putting any extra stringing grooves in. I'm probably just going to put the one groove. It's quite a lightweight bow, or intended to be a fairly lightweight bow. So we'll let's just put those grooves in now. Alright, it's got the top limb. Always best to make sure. And the bottom. out and I'm going to remark where the handle section is on here before I lose all the marks. There we go. Got a handle section on there marked. And just to remind you, the centre line is there and the handle is moved down from the centre line, so leaving us with a longer top limb than the bottom. Okay, just a reminder there. And obviously this shows you where the top limb is, so you've got that 1 inch of where the top limb is and then sort of 3.5 where the bottom of the handle is, so we know our top limb is this limb where it's nearer the centre line. Okay, let's get the string on loose to begin with and do some initial tillering on this one. Now, through years of experience, just by feel and by looking at the dimensions of the stave after roughing out, you actually can tell, okay, that's going to be stiffer there, that's going to be bending there. You can continue doing more roughing out, if you like, or more technically it's tillering, because you're actually doing work towards what the bow is going to look like on the tiller, rather than necessarily just removing rough wood, taking it from the square section down to the D section. But at first, really, and what most of my videos are aimed at really are people who are beginning in the art of bow making, is really you need to get it on the tiller as soon as you've done the roughing out and start seeing what the bow looks like. One of the things I showed you with the Yew Bow is using the calipers and checking the depth measurements to width measurement and checking that those are correct. I can do that here on the handle section and just see. So I can see that handle section is too thick. Okay, so I'm almost certainly going to need to take some wood off, but as I say, we're going to do it in the way that I would really recommend, which is getting the bow up on the tiller and actually being able to see it, physically see whether the bow is bending correctly or not. Okay, so let's get that up on there. Okay, all right, let's pull that a few times. Just a little bit at first and see what we get. Okay, so you can probably see straight away, if I hold that there, we're very stiff throughout here, all the way through the middle to about here, so if I can get my finger in the right place, and it's actually bending quite a lot just here and here. Okay, so you can probably see that, and I'm bending that really just about beyond where the bow is straight. So all I'm doing is taking the bow to beyond the setback that's been taken in. So there it's flat, there taking it just beyond the setback, and we can start to see where the bow is bending. So I'm going to need to take out through that handle section where we showed with the calipers where it was too stiff, and then throughout the rest of the mid limbs really of the bow up to the sort of center areas of the limbs, and get the rest of that bow bending. So as I say, through experience, I could see and feel by the when you're touching, when you're running your hands along the bow, your hands start to act like eyes. You start to be able to gauge really what the feel of the bow should be. That's something that comes with experience really. It's a bit like the same with working with arrow shafts. You start to feel which are the light ones, which are the heavy ones, although it's only a tiny amount of difference in between them. The more you work with these materials, the more you're able to feel as well as see. God, makes me sound like Mr. Miyagi out of the Karate Kid, doesn't it? Okay. So So I think we'll put the bow onto the bench here and we'll clamp it on and we'll see what we can remove with the plane. Okay, running my hands along here, I often use my thumb, I can feel it starts to get a lot thicker here and it's a bit more lumpy. So I'll use the plane on that, I think. Hiding, oh here, it's hiding by the subscribe sign. Subscribe sign. Just a small hint there. Subscribe. Okay, that's one limb, let's do the other. So again, I'm avoiding that area towards the tip there where it was bending. So I'm going from mid limb with the plane there and going towards the handle. Okay, let's check again. So this caliper was showing us that the handle section was too thick there, yeah, so there we are. So that extra bit of wood on there, as I say, it's almost going to disappear. So let's remove a bit of that. Okay, almost. Almost. Okay, a little bit more. Tiny little bit more at the top. Okay, that's fine. Now I'll continue to use the rasp here, make the Buchanan dips a bit more pronounced, and work on this area here where we used the plane there, get rid of some of those marks, top and bottom. Okay, let's get the string back on. Alright, let's work that in and see if that's made any difference. Okay, so that's changed the shape of it a bit. That bottom limb, I expect you can see that is working a lot more than the top. So there's a lot we can take out of the top limb. Again, it's still very stiff in this sort of handle to mid section there. It's not really moving much, so I can probably use the plane on that area again. And it is stiff actually a little bit in the handle section just there as well. But at the moment we've got quite a discrepancy there with that bottom limb bending a lot more than the top. So we'll do some work on that top limb, see if we can't even that up a bit. Take a tiny bit out of that handle section on the bottom limb as well. Okay, let's get that back up on the tiller, see if that's made any difference. So we've taken quite a bit out of this top limb and a little bit out of the handle section on the bottom. Let's see if that's evened it up at all. Okay, so we've still got too much bend in the bottom limb. The bottom limb is bending better, it is bending more evenly after having taken some out of that section there. It's still a little bit too stiff there, but that top limb really generally isn't bending enough. So we can afford to take some more out of that top limb and see if we can get that bending a bit more evenly. Okay, I think we'll leave that there for now. I'll get on and do that, and when you come back, hopefully this will be looking a bit better than it does at the moment. I'll continue to take some more out of that top limb, probably concentrating on that area here where it's still quite stiff, but it is actually stiff generally compared to the bottom limb, which has actually got quite a nice, fairly nice even bend in that now. So okay folks, thanks you as always for watching these Bowyer's blogs, and a special thank you, we've reached 5,000 viewers. Yes, I really can't quite believe it, 5,000 viewers. I really must thank you. My target this year was, actually I made a ridiculous target of trying to reach 6,000. We were at 4,000 at the beginning of the year. So we got 1,000 new subscribers throughout the year, and wow, as I say, I really can't believe it. So hello and thank you to all of you for making that possible. I'm really quite blown away. And just as a little rather nice story, I made a video, a sort of a Mickey take video, putting a GoPro onto an arrow, which I'll put up on here if you haven't had a look. It's a bit of a laugh. And the arrow that I used in it, the prop arrow that I put the camera into on the arrow, I gave it to a friend's son, who I hear the other day now likes to play a game, because he really liked the video. He liked seeing the arrow, the camera arrow, GoPro arrow flying around. He plays a game with his dad, where his dad has to be me, and he's the arrow chasing his dad around the house. So that's the pretty much for me, that's the coolest thing out of having having made all these videos, that I have now become a childhood game. So I joined the pantheon of British Bulldogs, Ring-a-Ring-a Roses, and chasing Phil with the arrow camera thing. So yeah, I'm pretty proud of that. Thanks guys. If you want to subscribe, then please do. If you want to check out some of the other videos, or indeed the video that I was just talking about, the camera one, I'll put it up here. Thanks again folks, and I'll see you again soon.